Hello and welcome. This is Sebastiaan from Social Anxiety Solutions. I am here today with Becca, and she's a member of our Social Confidence Club, and I'm going to interview her about her experience with the club and how it's been. And that's at this moment, if you're watching it now, in anticipation of the launch of 4.0. We're going into the fourth year. It's actually the fifth year. The first year was Social Confidence Community, but since we renamed it, it's going to be the fourth year of the club. And let's see what we come up with. So I created a whole bunch of questions, and I'm going to ask that to Becca, but I want to first kind of frame things a little bit. So I reached out to Becca saying, hey, as you know, there are 5 stages to go from social anxiety to social ease. And a lot of people, they're very obsessed with, okay, I got to be 100% free of social anxiety or else there's nothing. It's either completely free of social anxiety or, I'm still full in suffering. And that's not how it works. So you go through different stages. And so I asked her, like, can you just genuinely share about where you're at and what still, bothers you and what breakthroughs you've had and all that kind of stuff, because that places you at a certain point on the journey. And, I was listening to some marketing guy about how to help people understand the value of what you have to offer. And he said it's a mistake to just put out information of people who made it all the way to the other side, because for people that are in stage 0 and social anxiety is very severe and nothing seems to work, and they've tried all these things, they're very skeptical of anything, then imagining what it's like to be completely free of it, that's too big of a jump. But when they hear people in different stages, that's actually more helpful, because they can go, okay, well, I don't think I completely overcome it, but maybe I can make it to stage 2 or stage 3 or maybe even stage 4. So yeah, I think that's helpful to set the frame, because we just want to have an honest conversation about what's up and what's going on. So anyway, reframing that like that, I would like to start off first of all by saying thank you for doing this.
A pleasure.
Much appreciated. And yeah, I just want to start off by saying, how was it before the club, the social anxiety? What was that like? How did you experience that? What did you feel like in social situations? What were your big problems and that kind of stuff?
Okay, I think I have been socially anxious since I was a child, but I wasn't actually aware it was a thing until I came across your work. So I really noticed it getting so much worse after I became a mum. And then particularly when my children started school and I had to mingle with other parents. So I don't live in England, I'm English, but I live in Barcelona. So there's also the different languages playing in that game as well. And I knew myself to be in my comfort zone as somebody who's friendly and bubbly and able to get along with people, like in the job that I'd been doing before I was a mum. And then I found myself at the school gates, unable to speak to anybody, trying and coming out and nothing coherent, feeling ever so lonely, seeing these groups of parents bonding together and little cliques forming and stuff, and there was still me standing by myself and really giving myself a hard time about how incapable I was, how useless I was, how I wouldn't fit in, and what a terrible role model I was going to be for my son. And and how that was going to influence his social life as well if I couldn't go and hang out with other parents, and forcing myself to try to join in and try to be in situations that were just so uncomfortable for me, and then coming home and all of the beating myself up about it and going into like pits of despair about how I just couldn't, how I was just like stuck in this scenario.
Mm,
So it was a dark time for me. Then I came
yeah.
across your work and I did the self-paced program, which I found brilliant. I threw myself into that. So I did a lot of work on clearing particular memories. And then I got distracted. And
Mm.
things kind of like got stuck there until I found the club.
When you said you were beating yourself up after, like say, unsuccessful social situations, because this is very
Mm.
common. Like, I think that's a big part of what turns it into a disorder. There's a whole bunch of people that have like social anxiety. Like I have friends that have some social anxiety, but I've spoken to it about them, and it's like, well, yeah, it just happens, and I in those situations I get nervous, or in those situations I get anxious. For them, it's also not super extreme, but yeah, they are not worried and obsessing about that for the longest time. So what was like, do you remember what kind of things you would say to yourself, or what you would worry about, or like the feelings that you had? And
I the feeling that I wasn't able to connect and I was missing out on these opportunities, like wasn't like these people were bad in any way, but just I was never going to be able to make these friendships, and the feeling that that wouldn't change. And how useless I was at small talk, how I just didn't have this, I was boring, I had nothing to say for myself. The things that came out of my mouth sounded stupid.
mm,
The
mm,
fact that if I did actually manage to speak about something, then it was either interrupted or people weren't interested. So that made me feel like I'm just, a worthless, unacceptable human
mm,
being. And
mm, right. And what kind of emotions would you get into? What would you feel when you were in, like, when you were having those kinds of thoughts?
massive shame that there's just something completely wrong with me, just defective.
Mm.
Sadness, a lot of sadness, that and loneliness, those tying into the sadness there.
Yeah,
Anger
they're
with
cousins.
myself.
Mm.
Yeah, anger, because surely it's so easy. I can see everybody else doing it. Why can't I do it? What's wrong with
So
me?
frustrating. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
entirely.
Right. Right. And I ask these questions as well because to help people, to help you who's watching this, understand that you're not the only one who has these kinds of feelings. They're very, very common. Um, and it's what exacerbates the social anxiety, because now you have a difficult social situation where your beliefs and fears and your unresolved traumas and all of that is inhibiting you. It doesn't make, it's causing you to not feel safe being yourself. Your brain is seeing all sorts of social threats, and so there's anxiety, and then that prevents you from just saying hello and like connecting with other people. And now you go home, and now you're beating yourself up about it, and you're feeling ashamed about what you're dealing with, and you're angry at yourself and frustrated with yourself, worried that it won't go away, and how is this going to affect me, and how is this going to affect my family? And it just becomes like this huge thing. It just becomes bigger and bigger. Yeah. I can relate to that, as lots of other people as well.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you for sharing. In those moments, what were some of what was most painful, or what did you fear the most, or both?
It felt like a snowball. It felt like this was an opportunity for me to go and connect with these parents. And if I could connect with them and they could get to know me, then it wouldn't be as hard next time.
Mm.
But because I couldn't do that, I was just, every time I was there, I was making it worse. They were getting closer and I was getting further away.
Mm.
And so it felt like every time was adding to the triggering.
Right.
And
Right.
the battle each time, like, I should go up, but I can't, but it really should. And trying to force myself to do things. And when I forced it and it just came out like gobbledygook, like, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
it just made it even worse.
Yeah, right. Right. And then the way you talk to yourself and the feelings that that evokes, um, and the beliefs that you're kind of practicing afterwards are only kind of, how do you say that, negatively preparing you for the next social situation.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, it's just this vicious cycle. All right, and then you found um, some online program of mine. You worked through a bunch of memories, and then eventually the club started. So, sorry, what were the things that you tried before? Were there any other things you tried, or was this is quite unusual? Am I and is tapping the first thing that you tried?
Yes, yes. I
My
didn't even
marketing
know
is
it.
improving.
Well, yeah, I didn't even know that it was something that other people suffered from. I thought it was
Mm,
just me and I was crap, and everybody else was going about their lives able to do this, and there was just some kind of missing gene that I had or something.
mm. Yeah, that's actually the experience of a lot of people. There's a lot of people that have social anxiety or social anxiety disorder and they don't know that they have it. Like statistics say that it's 12% in the US that at some point in their, or 13%, whatever, 12 or 13%, that at some point in their life suffers from social anxiety disorder. I'm like, yeah, it's a lot higher, but a lot of people are not reporting it, or a lot of people are not even aware that they are dealing with that. It's much more rampant than that. Yeah, okay, interesting. You became aware of, um, that there were solutions. And then did you have any doubts about joining the club?
No, no, I guess I wasn't aware of it the first year you did it, so
Mm,
1.0. But when I saw it come around the second year, I just thought, this is what I need,
mm,
because I know that I'm very distractible. And so the fact that there's a club, there's something to keep me going,
mm,
was a big pull for
right.
me.
Okay, cool. All right. And can you remember how you felt once you joined? Did you have any worries or concerns, or like maybe positive
Uh,
or negative or both?
well, yes, I've just thought now that I did think, okay, so I've already done the courses, the,
Hmm.
the programs that you've done. At that stage as well, I'd already trained as an EFT practitioner. And so there
Oh
was part
wow.
of, yeah, yeah. And I was feeling really bad that I hadn't been able to fix myself, even though I knew the
Mm,
tools and I'd done your programs and stuff, and I hadn't been able to get any further or further enough to be able to launch myself
mm,
and help other people.
mm,
And so part of me was thinking, okay, so I can't do it by myself. I need help. And then part of me was thinking, I'm going to know all of this already because I've already trained and I've already done your program. So part of me was not expecting as much as there actually is in there.
mm,
So it really was a lot of value for money. I was trying to calculate, okay, how much is it per month? And that's going to give me, okay, I can justify it to myself thinking I'm doing that. Even if I get nothing out of the content of the information behind social anxiety or how to do tapping. But there was a lot that I learned as well from you over the 2 years that I've been in there about how prevalent it is, how complex it is as well.
mm.
And whereas initially I thought I should be able to get over this by myself, it's been a real relief knowing that it is actually really complex and takes, or it can be really complex, and it isn't easy if it's been there for a long time or if there's a lot of different reasons behind it. I know that for some
Yeah.
people they can, but it
Mm,
made me feel better about myself for not having made more progress than I had as well.
mm. Yeah, right. Right. Yeah. Well, people hear about tapping, and it's a bit changed now, but how it initially was promoted, it was like 1 minute miracles. People have a snake phobia. They do 1 minute of tapping, and if they happen to have that specific core event that's related to where the snake phobia started, it can clear up in a minute. But that's very, very rare, and it never happens with social anxiety. And then people are often thinking, okay, well, I need to have the right kind of tapping script for social anxiety. But they try to target social anxiety as the issue, but that's actually just a symptom of a whole bunch of other stuff underneath it. Lower self-esteem, lack of self-acceptance, social perfectionism, and these kinds of deeper underlying issues have to do with relational trauma or shock trauma or programming. And these things take time to chip away at. And yeah, that can be quite complex. However, the complex can be broken down into bite-sized chunks. And when you chip away at it, then bit by bit, you start to improve. And so you start to get triggered less frequently. You get to feel less and less intense anxiety, and the anxiety starts to leave faster and faster. And as the symptoms starts to diminish, at the same time, because you're working on boosting your self-esteem, deepening your self-acceptance, and getting rid of the social perfectionism, you're becoming more chill, you're becoming more easygoing, you're becoming more comfortable with you, safe to be yourself. So it's it's not a quick fix, but it's a profound process that leads to profound transformation over a period of time. And my mentor, David Lake, who's a psychotherapist, um, a trainer, therapist, and mentor to therapists and all that kind of stuff, and a tapping expert. He's like, significant, like the real deep, significant, lasting change happens over a period of time. That tends to not happen in just a flash. Maybe that will come in the future. I don't know. I'm open to it, but for now, it just takes time. But it's just a beautiful process. So, anyway, um, going on to the next question. So, you remember how you felt after the first month? I know these are very specific questions, but
Ooh.
yeah, there's also a bit for me, huh? Because I'm curious.
Gosh, after the first month, I remember like initially I was really forcing myself to volunteer. And so I was still feeling really anxious when I was volunteering, but I felt that I had to push myself to do it. And that got much easier, for sure.
Mm, mm,
But I felt it a necessary part of my growth, because outside of the club, maybe my life had become so small that I wasn't actually having that many scenarios where I was feeling triggered in the moment.
mm.
So I felt like this is good. I'm putting myself in a situation which is safe to be able to feel like this and work on what comes up.
Yeah. Hmm. That's a good point. Um, we're providing basically a social scenario um, on the Zoom call, because all of these people are showing up, and everyone is dealing with the same problem. Everyone is dealing with social anxiety. And in the beginning of the club, we go over the club rules, kind of like Fight Club. And one of the main rules is anxiety is not a secret here. You know, so it's okay to be anxious. In fact, it's welcomed. It's fine. There's no problem here. And we're all tapping to deal with this. And just if someone is watching this and they're not really aware of um, the Social Confidence Club, let me just give a real brief summary. So there are tap alongs on Tuesday, Motivation Tuesday. On Thursday, there are specific tapping exercises to reduce your social anxiety and essential psychology lessons of, the psychology of the socially confident and the psychology of change and specific tapping exercises. And on Sunday, we do live webinars, and people can participate either anonymously, so you're there, but you don't have your camera on, you don't have your audio on, or one level up is you can be there, X in front of your name, so you don't get called on, or you can be there and you can get called on. So that means raising your hands, typing in the chat window. So there are different levels that you can challenge yourself. Some people, in fact, the majority goes through the whole club being completely anonymous, just watching the replays. And even that works, believe it or not, pretty freaking amazing. Last year, I did an interview with Jessica, who contacted me at the end of the year saying, hey, Seb, you want to do an interview? I've overcome my social anxiety. I'm like, sure. And I didn't even know who it was. She'd just been working in the background, doing the exercises. Yeah, pretty amazing. Anyway, so that's the club. And then for the people that do show up live, that do choose to show up live on Sundays, and the times are, here we go, 9 a.m. Amsterdam time, 10:30 a.m. New York time, and 7 o'clock Sydney time. So for the people that do show up, it is kind of like a social setting, and that may very well trigger anxiety. And in the first few months, pretty much everyone is anxious on that call. And so one of the first things that we're all doing is we're tapping on the anxiety that gets triggered as a result of being in this group call, being with all of these people here. And anyone who decides to volunteer, one of the first things that I say once they unmute themselves, like, all right, how intense is it? 0 to 10. And then, when you're all frozen up in anxiety, then you can pretty easily blurt out, it's an 8. Yeah. And then we can tap and we start to calm that down, and we work on the underlying issues. And as we're doing that, everyone else is tapping along. And many people are having very similar thoughts, very similar feelings. So everyone starts to slowly but surely calm down. Yeah. So but it can be a bit scary in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or quite scary. But yeah, it's a safe environment because it's different than your typical social situation. When you're in a social situation, it's like, oh, let me start tapping, and I feel anxious and awkward. Yeah, all right, that's a bit hard. But here, it's a safe environment. Yeah. Okay, good. Where are you at now with things? How's the social anxiety now compared to how it was?
I find that in general, like since, I don't know, 6 months, 8 months ago, my anxiety in general has come a lot down. That doesn't make sense. It's a lot lower than it normally was, like just in general, like just going through life, which has meant that I'm able to go to events, like I said, like my context is my children's schools. So going to like meetings or workshops and stuff, which would normally have like caused me anxiety all day in the run up and getting there. And the last few times I've gone without any anticipatory anxiety when I got there, and I've been able to sit there and do it without feeling any of the symptoms, which is great. I've noticed as well that and participating too, like I'd be like, oh, shall I say it, shall I not, shall I say it, shall I not? And now I've blurted things out, and even though this is a thing that still remains to see if I can improve it, it comes out a bit unintelligible, and people are looking at me like, what? Hey, what? I don't take it personally. That doesn't shut me down. I'm just like, all right, I tried to say it. I've tried. That's fine. So I'm a lot kinder to myself in those moments too. And it's not stopped me participating. And also a general feeling of, I don't care as much what other people think of me. So my self-acceptance, both as me as a person and of the fact that I've got social anxiety and it is difficult. So being a lot more respectful of my limits like not forcing myself to do things that previously I would have done. So I can stand like in the past, I'd have been at the school gates and standing by myself thinking, oh God, no. Now, if I don't see anybody I want to speak to, I can stand there and be fine with it. You know, they can think what they want. I'm more comfortable doing this, and I'm respecting my own needs right now. So I think there's a lot of things.
Huge.
Yeah. And another thing that I noticed, there's somebody that I would normally avoid having any conversation where we'd have a difference of opinion, because it would make me burst into tears or walk off. I just got like so triggered by it, or this other person as well. And so it was always very superficial. And recently I had 2 conversations with this person, differing opinions, controversial opinions in my case, and I was able to get through it without crying, without caving into their opinion, like holding my own. And that's something absolutely unthinkable.
Amazing. Yeah, it's a crazy thing, when what you formerly used to experience over and over and over isn't happening anymore. You know, you just feel so much more empowered, right? Yeah. Now I remember in the beginning of the club that frequently you had to cry in certain scenarios,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for quite a while. And then what that actually is like it's a younger you who has unprocessed. I'm saying this for everyone else, right? A younger you has unprocessed grief and sadness and hurt, and in a moment of conflict, it's that little girl or that little boy that gets triggered, and you feel those excessive feelings. You know, like you have a excessively strong emotional reaction that doesn't really make sense. And in that moment, you revert back to seeing the world through the eyes of that little you. And now you're in adult world being in conflict with someone, and so you feel those overwhelming feelings from way back when, and your brain is perceiving a threat. And so now you're dealing with all of that, which is a very, very difficult situation to deal with. Yeah, so powerful that you can now hold your own. So wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, very cool. How is the after social situations scenario now?
Much easier. For a start, I am feeling, if I'm in a group, I'm actually enjoying being in groups for the first time in forever, because I don't
Amazing.
feel that I've got to prove to myself that I've got something to contribute by speaking. So I'm happy to be in the group and listen to other people. And if something comes up, I'll say it. And I'll still go through the like the shame radar afterwards, but it's not as intense as it was. And if there is something, it doesn't last as long as it used to. Tap it away. I can look it in the face and let it go.
Mm. Right. You have the tools now, which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
a game changer. Yeah. Very cool. Well, people are often afraid that being in the club is painful. Was it a painful process? Is it a painful
No,
process?
not at all. No, I loved it. I love the club. I found it's lovely. I mean, you've said that there are some people who show up and other people who don't, but I found it really, really lovely to see faces that become more familiar over time. And there's the WhatsApp group as well, and people like sharing, oh, this has happened, and it's so supportive, so kind. There's like no fear. Like I would never write messages in group chats because I'd always fear what would come of it, but there's no, it's just all kindness and love. Kindness and love.
Yeah.
But the responses are super supportive or empathetic, because everybody knows what it's like. And so it just feels really good to be around people who are in the same boat as you. and you don't feel like the odd one out at all. And so whether that's in the WhatsApp, whether that's when you're on the call and you see these faces, and you know, you can chat to them outside of the set situations as well, which I found
Yeah.
really, really nice as well. I formed some nice little friendships there. So it's just, it
Nice.
feels like a really safe place to be. And I look forward to seeing the gang.
Nice. I'm glad to hear that. That's great. This is a big thing, yeah. As the organizer of it, and with the team that we've put together, like this is what we're often having meetings about. Like how do we make sure that it is a safe environment? How can we make sure that you know, people feel welcome, and how can we enhance the community? You know, this is like ongoing thinking and strategizing. So that's good. Glad to hear it. Um, how about the experience during webinars? What's that like? It's a bit of an open question, but yeah.
It's never uncomfortable unless I choose for it to be uncomfortable. Like, so if I decide to put myself in the volunteering position, initially that was uncomfortable because that's the point of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the fact that you've got the choice, and you know you're not going to get picked on unless you've, you know, put your asterisk or you're actually putting your hand up to volunteer, that makes it really comfortable if that's what you need. And so there's days that I'm really not feeling up for it, or, you know, I've had a bad night and I can just sit there with my camera off. That's really good to know that there's all these different options that you can manage depending on how much you can take that day.
Mm.
But
And what is it? Go ahead.
I was just going to say the way that you support us as well. Like there's no, you are so supportive. And if somebody's having a moment where they're getting a bit emotional or something's come up, like the way that you deal with that, I find is really caring. And that makes it even safer, knowing that you're not going to be, if you're somebody who's been ridiculed for crying or ridiculed for going blank or had these situations, finding or seeing other people being treated differently and kindly in that situation, or being in the receiving end of that yourself, is really healing
Mm.
too, I think.
Mm. Right. That was actually what I was going to ask. What is it like to observe someone else with social anxiety have a coaching session? And what's that like for you?
As well as empathizing with the person who's in the situation and, you know, really wanting to support them too. There's so much that comes up for me, like I'm always sitting there and like taking notes on insights and stuff that I'm having about myself, even if often, like most of the time, what the person is expressing is stuff that I can relate to. But even if it's not direct related, it will like jog some memory or some thought or some insight. So it always
Yeah.
brings up stuff that is either being worked on by my subconscious while we're doing the session with somebody else, or I can come back to it and work on it myself afterwards. So
Mm.
really useful.
Yeah. Um, I'm not going to go in too much detail about it now, but like I wondered, I want to know why it works so well to just tap along with someone else. And so, you know, there's your regular borrowing benefits, which originally um, was discovered by the people, by the psychologists and therapists and social workers that started using the tapping, because they found they were normally just doing talk therapy with their clients. And at the end of the day, they would normally be burned out or tired or exhausted because you're hearing people talk about their problems all day long. Then, when they started using tapping with their clients, they started tapping along with their clients. And at the end of the day, they discovered that they were actually energized. They were not feeling tired anymore. They weren't burning out anymore. And they also found that some of their own issues had shrunk or even released while they never even talked about or tapped on that with their clients. So that's how they found out, like, there are benefits that you're borrowing by tapping along with somebody else. That then was taken further by Gary Craig, who started saying to people, okay, I'm going to do a presentation in front of the group. Um, I'm going to guide this person through their issue, maybe like a snake phobia. Everyone else, write on a piece of paper a specific painful memory and rate it on a scale of 0 to 10. So the time when my dad slapped me, 9 out of 10, and then fold it under your chair and tap along with this session about snake phobia. So people are tapping like, even though I have this snake phobia and it's so scary, I deeply and completely accept my, and they don't focus on their memory at all. And then at the end of the session, Gary would say, okay, now grab your piece of paper, open it up, and now re-rate. And the vast majority of people would have very low numbers or completely neutralize the memory just by tapping along with somebody else. So that's regular borrowing benefits. And then what we do is, I call it like borrowing benefits on steroids, because we have someone in front of the group, and whatever the person is talking about, it is so relatable. Everyone can relate to the fear of rejection. Everyone can relate to the fear of being seen anxious. Everyone can relate to the fear of negative judgment. Everyone has beliefs that they're not good enough. Everyone has painful memories. Everyone has the emotion of shame and blah, blah, blah. And it just goes on and on and on. And so often when I'm tapping with someone in front of the group, you'll be able to relate to this either directly, like, oh my God, I feel like that around my boss as well, or indirectly, like, oh yeah, this reminds me of this time when, or that shows up for me in X scenario, or I don't believe that exactly, but I believe that, because your subconscious starts to link it to how it's relevant for you. And further, like, I started studying it 6 months ago, and I found out about mirror neurons. Now I had heard of that before, but it was just so incredibly interesting to read. And I've got like 35 pages of notes. I wanted to make a video out of it, but I just didn't have the time. And now I was looking into it again, and through your mirror neurons, you can sense what someone else is feeling. Uh, whether that, like, I'll give you an example. I went to see A Star Is Born. Have you seen it or not?
I've not seen it, no.
Not seen it. Oh, no, I can't. Not sure
Spoiler.
if I should say. I can't spoil it. It's such a great movie. But anyway, no, I'm not going to say it then. All right. Anyway, I'll just give an example that I gave a couple of days before. So I watched a video of Russell Peters, who's a stand-up comedian, and in his audience he has a whole bunch of people, and he does his routine jokes, and then all of a sudden he does crowd work, where he starts to pick on people in the crowd. So there's a guy with a red pants and red hair, so he makes a comment about that, and the guy starts to blush. Now as the guy starts to blush, Russell Peters goes into that. It's like, oh my God, now you're a complete match, and the guy starts to blush even more. He's like, oh my God, look at him blushing. And now the camera starts to zoom in, and Russell Peters like, zoom in that camera, put it right there on his face. And like the camera zooms in on his face, and the guy doesn't know where he look, and he's doing like this awkward facial yoga. And like, I'm cringing and I'm watching this, right? Because you're empathizing with this person, and you can sense what that feels like. And so even just talking about it now, I can kind of sense it a bit.
Me too.
And yeah, right. And because you're not the person who's receiving that coaching session, it's a lot safer because you have a safe distance. And because of your prefrontal cortex, you can empathize, but you still at the same time know that's not me, that's somebody else. And that allows for things to be just a bit safer. And so you access some of the feelings, your subconscious knows what it is linked to. And as you're tapping, you're releasing things yourself. Now, there's a lot more to be said about this, but it's just pretty pretty amazing. So I'm very happy with how this is. So anyway, did you want to say anything else? Otherwise, I'm moving on to my next question.
No, no.
Like the sound of my voice a bit too much. All right. Yeah. What specifically do you like most about the club?
That we're all in it together, that we're all moving forward together, and we can kind of help. One person's progress is inspiring for everybody else.
Mm,
We
yeah.
all know what we're going through, and we're all rooting for everybody.
Right. Right. That's very nice. And the wins that are being shared, and
Yeah.
how that's inspiring. Yeah. Or when someone has a setback and they're like, "Oh, I'm stuck. I can't change or transform
Mm.
this," and people can relate to that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes you have deep sessions, um, and someone's really at their wits' end and like, "Oh, nothing works," and blah blah blah. And then no, actually, it does work. And you just need to get past this, and then as that person transforms, yeah, it's very inspiring to see that. And well, I think it inspires, right? It gives you hope. So, well, if that person can get
Yeah.
there, yeah, I can get there too.
Absolutely.
Nice. Cool. All right. What are three other things that you like about the club, or three other benefits that you got from it? That's better. What are three other
Mm.
benefits that you got from it, or mix it?
For me, accountability, the fact that there is a live call, and I know nobody's depending on me to show up, but the fact that it's there, and that's my time every week. So even if I don't manage anything during the week, I know that on a Sunday I go and I do my tapping and I'm working on myself.
Mm,
Without that, I really don't think I would have that regularity. I know I wouldn't
mm,
have that regularity. So that's super, super useful for me. Um, the information that you provide on and around social anxiety as well. Like you did this amazing article about avoidance. I
mm,
found that super helpful as well, that in the sense of, as an example, right, of that helped in the sense of it allowed me to give myself permission to not force myself to do all of this stuff that I had been previously doing. So
mm,
the info, the content that you're giving as well, I think, and you're always updating what you're bringing in as well. I just talking now about the mirror neurons, and I know there's going to be something coming on that as well. So
mm,
it's not this is I've been in for 2 years, and from 1 year to the next, I know that you've made a load of improvements, and so it never feels stale.
mm. Thank you. Appreciate that. Getting a lot of compliments today. Okay, this is good. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, no, this is what keeps it fun for me as well. Like, this is not a perfect project. This is a process in motion, and there are certain fundamentals that I feel really strong about because of a lot of evidence myself and evidence in my clients, such as the key of acceptance, the key of releasing resistance, and the key of neutralizing your triggers and what they are. Like, that foundation is really solid. But yeah, certain things are, you know, I coached for 9 years before I started to get into group coaching. So I'm not even half as long into group coaching as I was into one-on-one coaching. And so, yeah, you're still learning new things. It's a different dynamic, and no, I'm loving it as well. So anyway, thank you. See, I'm talking about myself again. All right, so um, would you recommend the club? If so, why? It's a good marketing question, of course, but
Oh yeah, definitely. Why? It's the support from you, the support from the community. It's tools that work, and tools that, even obviously when you're doing it in the session, you use them, but the things that you can take outside to your daily life and apply in the moment, whether it's like the physical tapping or whether it's other tools like the intention statements that you use.
mm,
So we're able to use it outside the structure of what we're doing actively with you.
Yeah, yeah. And if I may promote a little bit as well,
Please
I,
do.
I think, yeah, I think that um, we're doing a lot of work together in our group sessions, and certain themes are coming back over and over and over. And so that cannot help but go into your automatic thinking, feeling, and behaving. And I, I find that very powerful for my, like, I work with my own coach already for 13 years on a weekly basis, and that's no longer to resolve social anxiety. Don't worry, that's done. But life keeps presenting new challenges and new problems, and I like having someone who is way ahead of me in this particular area that I can learn from every week. And so, my coach is in her 70s, um, and meditates for 3 hours every day, for 2.5 hours every day at 3 o'clock in the morning, and is just wise. She's just a very wise woman, and I'm very grateful for how much she's helped me and how much she's still helping me. And I like having these kinds of people. And my mentor, David Lake, late in his 60s, um, they have a particular perspective about life and how to approach certain things. And you hear that over and over. And I find myself thinking in their way and, perceiving life in that kind of way. So I think uh, we as a community facilitate a particular perspective and a particular vibe and energy that you take with you as well outside of the club. Yeah, and it's not just me. We also have other every month we have a guest expert who comes in and coaches, and they bring both their unique perspective and their unique skill set, but it's also somehow kind of within the same framework, it's right.
Yeah. It's all very congruent.
Yeah, nice guy.
Mhm.
Right. That's, some things are a bit hard to communicate, um, I find, but um, yeah. Anyway, I hope I'll land the plane for that on you. This is about as good as I can get it. Yeah. All right. Good. Let's see. Anything else you would like to add?
I don't think
No, it's
so.
fine.
I probably
Yeah.
think that afterwards. I just checked my notes, having my notes. I'll probably think of
Yeah.
something afterwards, but
No, perfect. Perfect. Good. Um, then I would just like to say thank you for showing up and for doing this and for letting other people know about it. How'd you feel throughout the interview? Because this is also a bit of a scary thing to do.
really good actually. I was
Hmm.
surprised at how calm I felt before. I got a little bit nervous as we began, so I've been tapping below the camera the whole
Uh-huh.
time. Well, not the whole time, for about half of it, but I don't know, I'm feeling, nearly knocked my screen over. I'm feeling really good actually, really relaxed. I
Nice.
never thought I'd be able to do this.
Hmm. Amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Much appreciated.
My pleasure.
And yeah, if you're watching this, the Social Confidence Club is going to open its doors for 5 days before we close for a whole year. And that's going to be in the last week of February. Until then, we are releasing masterclass series. It's a 3-part video series called Stop Your Social Anxiety, the 2023 approach to overcome your social anxiety completely, where I talk you through how you can get to a place where there's no more social anxiety, the three keys to social ease that you've heard a bit about, but that's just big picture. Here, I actually drill down and I show you the psychology. And then finally, the 5 stages to effortless social ease. What are these 5 stages that you go through? How do you feel at each stage? And then video testimonials of each stage. So very, very inspiring. If you watch this and you watch all the 3 videos, you can't help but afterwards feel like, oh my God, I really can overcome this. Big promise, but let's go check it out. All right. So you can check out the masterclass by going to bit.ly/social confidence masterclass. That is bit.ly/social confidence masterclass. So there you have it. Go check it out. All right. Again, Becca, thank you very much. And hope we get to connect at some point very soon. Bye for now.